It's another lovely day at YAA Electric Studios, coming at you live from West Virginia and California, two very, very different places. My name is Justin Fisher. Justice, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Today, we're going to chat not only about the new EV tax credits, because I know some of us are moving beyond that and thinking about other things in EV world, but also plug-in hybrids versus EVs, which one might make sense for your specific scenario. It's a pretty interesting topic to think about because plug-in hybrids do qualify for the new EV tax credit as long as they meet the other eligibility requirements that every other electrified vehicle has to meet. But yeah, plenty to talk about today. I figured, Justice, we could start out by talking about some of the latest non-tax related news in EV world. It's been a while since we've done that. And yeah, I think let's dive right in, shall we? Did you
Okay.
see what Rivian had done to their pricing this week and how they eliminated the cheapest option that they had?
Well, they just shifted the cheapest option. Let's be clear. There is still a cheapest option. It's just
You're
not
right.
cheap anymore.
Yes,
Yeah.
precisely.
Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, you had to know that was going to come.
Yeah, it's not really a surprise because they definitely are working on slim margins. They're not anywhere near making a profit right now, but they eliminated or canceled the base Explorer model, which started at 67,500, and now the most affordable Rivian you can get is the $73,000 Adventure trim, which is under the $80,000 cap for the EV tax credit if you don't add anything at all to it. And Rivian right now is not producing the Adventure trim yet. That would be coming like next year. Right now, they're producing the more expensive trims because that's how they need to make some money. I mean, Tesla did the same thing. You
Yep.
said it doesn't surprise you at all. I guess I would agree. So far, in their most recent earnings report, Rivian has reported delivering just under 5,000 vehicles. How many Rivians are you seeing around there on the West Coast?
I don't see many. It's a thing. See, I think about four in town that I see, but they're just sort of like the same four
Ah,
that I
yes,
see
yes.
all over the place. Um, so I haven't seen a lot yet coming through, but I mean, they're still a young company, and they had to build all the Amazon vehicles first. So I give them a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, they're still building a lot of Amazon vehicles. I believe they've got an order for what is it, 100,000?
Yeah, I think so. If they
Yeah,
haven't cut it,
yeah, but their production facility in Normal, Illinois is still ramping up. And as you said, they're having to basically ration their supplies for Amazon's delivery order and the Rivian R1T, not to mention the R1S, which is, I believe they've had a few employee only deliveries so far. Are you aware of any non employee deliveries of the R1S?
no, not deliveries. I know they have um, eight, I think it is, test stations throughout the U.S. where you can go and drive one and stuff. But that's really all I know about, or marketing ones.
Yeah, interesting. Now, hello to everyone in the chat today. Happy Hippo, lovely to see you today. Susanna, Antoine, Igor, thank you for being here. Let us know in the chat what you guys want to talk about because today we're just kind of taking it easy. We are going to talk a little bit more about the tax credit because we've had plenty of questions on this topic. But I think we're going to focus a little bit more on some other news. Next up, Acura. The Acura Precision EV was unveiled yesterday. It is slated for a 2024 arrival. Acura, which is owned by Honda, is a bit late to the EV game. I think they were betting on the long-term perseverance of hybrid powertrains, and we say it all the time on the show: hybrids aren't going anywhere. Plug-in hybrids are not going anywhere. So, I guess they're seeing that. Well, they might as well get into the EV game. I mean, Justice, we've got a lot of automakers saying that by 2030, 2035, they're going to be, half electrified, or even in some cases 100% electrified by 2035. So it's no surprise that Acura is doing this. You might know more than I do about Honda's general plans for electrification. Anything to share?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they're just sort of Honda's is creating partnerships. I think we've just seen the beginning of the partnerships there. I think that's the way a lot of these are going to go. I am very skeptical about their 2030 timelines. I just don't
Y-
think they're going to get there.
Yeah, just dug up the numbers. It says that Honda overall plans to invest $40 billion to produce 30 fully electric vehicles at, over the next decade. Now, let me go ahead and share some images of the Precision EV concept. With electric vehicles, we're seeing more and more concept vehicles make it into production because if you've got the batteries flat under the floor, electric motors are like the size of a duffel bag. It's a lot easier to be creative with the design of the electric vehicle. So I think this concept may end up being quite similar to what we see in production in 2024. There it is. I mean, it's a blend of the Honda Prologue EV, which is also coming, I believe, late 2023, so a little bit earlier. But and honestly, Justice, what other design cues do you see in the exterior styling of the Precision EV from Acura?
I mean, it looks like what was their old? Was it the NDX? Like
Oh, perhaps.
there's definitely some styling cues. I think it was the NDX there. I mean, it looks good. It looks like an Acura still, which I think is important for people who like the brands. These brands sort of stay on brand when going to EV. Um, but it also looks pretty futuristic. I mean, I like it.
So I want everyone out there to let me know, what do they see in this rear styling of the Acura Precision EV. And if you're joining us on the podcast right now, I'm trying to see if the crowd can kind of make the same connections and uh, conclusions that I came to whenever I saw the rear of the Acura Precision EV. What does it look like to you, Justice?
Well, that's the front. I didn't see. I haven't seen what the rear looked like. Um,
Okay,
so
is my screen share working?
yeah, I see the
Okay,
front of it though.
well now I've got the rear up.
Ah, I still just see the front of my side. I don't know.
Interesting.
YouTube can tell us if they're seeing something else.
Interesting. I'm going to try to share it one more time. Now, I must mention that the Acura Precision EV is going to be powered by GM's Ultium platform. So, this is yet another one of those Honda EVs that is going to be made in America by General Motors. Keep in mind that most, if not all, Acuras sold in the United States are produced in the United States. They've got 4 factories in Ohio. So if you're thinking about the EV tax credit for the Acura Precision EV and the Honda Prologue coming out next year, which I'm looking forward to, the good news is, as long as they meet the battery sourcing requirements, which it's too early to know about that yet, they should qualify for the EV tax credits, at least half of it. So now, Justice, can you guys see the rear of the Precision
Yeah,
EV? Okay.
I can see that now. I can see
Does
that
this
now.
remind you of any other EVs coming to market at the same time, 2023, 2024?
It reminds me of a lot of different things, actually. Mm, Oddly enough, there's a little bit of Mini Cooper in there.
Hmm.
Um, there's a little bit of I'm seeing a little bit of the Model Y there and the hips. There's a lot of little tweaks and inspirations there. But
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up another image to share with you guys and see if you can chime in and let me know if what I'm seeing is just baloney. But I really, really think it looks like this other vehicle that I'm about to reveal. First, I gotta see what's in the chat. So sort of looks like a Subaru XT from years ago. Interesting. Learning Fast thinks it looks almost like an Infinity. Lexus RZ vibe. I could see that from the side.
yeah,
Now, it does have some resemblance in the overall footprint from the Cadillac Lyric, because the rumor is that it could be built on the same chassis as the Cadillac Lyric. It is going to be built by General Motors. It's expected to be about the same size, the same overall length as the Lyric. It has a gigantic frunk. I guess I'm assuming they would put a frunk under there up at the front. I don't think they'd waste that much space. But let me go ahead and share with you all which EV I think it looks like. No one said it in the chat, so maybe I'm just wrong. Here it comes. What do you think,
Oh,
Justice?
the Fisker. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can definitely see the ocean sort of vibe
Yeah.
in there. Yep.
Yeah.
Especially around the fenders and yeah, I agree.
And and I was checking out the Inside EV's live stream earlier today. I've always loved their show. And many were saying it looked like the BMW iX. I don't see that quite as much, but I think the rear looks like the Fisker Ocean. We don't have any specs on the Precision EV yet. We should learn that within the next few months. But if you're just joining us, we've got a lot more people with us now. Acura revealed their first fully electric vehicle yesterday. It's the Precision EV crossover, and no surprise, it's a crossover at all. GM is going to build it for them using GM's Ultium batteries. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. Ultium battery platform seems to have a lot going for it. Very similar to the Equinox in the back, is what Lindy says. That is true. Equinox and even the Blazer
Oh,
EV that
actually,
was revealed. Yeah, so I wonder how much of this is just simply GM's engineers throwing a Acura label on it. I don't know. Maybe they just got in a room together and collaborated, but definitely it's a marriage of GM and Honda Group here with the Acura Precision EV. Very interesting. Learning Fast in the chat says, is the Fisker Ocean actually going to happen? We think so. I mean, Henrik Fisker on social media has been posting tons and tons of videos of production prototypes driving around California right now. He's really excited about it, but is it going to happen? I believe so. Magna over in Europe is going to be producing the Fisker Ocean, so quality control in theory should not be an issue from day one like it has been for Lucid and Rivian and Tesla back in the early days. Because Magna builds cars for Jaguar, they build them for BMW, Mercedes, for some select models. They should be able to put this together fine, but it's all about the financials. I don't know anything about Fisker's financials, but we're gonna hope for it because I'm a
I
fan of
know
the Ocean.
they took a hit when their last model ended up at the bottom of the ocean in New York. I know
Yeah.
that was a bit of a problem for them, which is why I found it ironic that they're calling this one the Ocean.
Yes, yes, it is ironic. The first Fisker Ocean, I mean Fisker Karma hybrid electric sports car. Yep, it died in the salt water of Hurricane Sandy, and now here they are naming their next shot, yeah, Fisker Ocean. Very, very interesting. Oh yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. A little bit more news, then we'll talk a bit more about the tax credit. If you're here for tax credit help, drop your question in the chat. We're definitely here to help. We've had so many shows and episodes on that topic by now that I know most of you are tired of it, but we're here to help. Don't be afraid to leave your questions in there, and I'll make sure and leave the resources we've published on joinyaa.com in the chat before we go today. Let's see what else is in the news, Justice. Ah, the ID Buzz, the Volkswagen ID Buzz, of which you are/were a fan of. Remind me, Justice, where do you stand right
Uh,
now on the ID Buzz?
I loved it when I got to ride in it in Santa Monica when they first premiered it, and it was beautiful. And the production that they've come out with is not the vehicle that I sat in, and I really wanted the prototype to make it. So while I'm not against it, it's not as beautiful as the prototype was, and I was very excited about that. So,
Ah, yeah. Okay. Well, it's complicated. To me, the interior is what kind of
yep,
turned me off a little bit.
yep.
But
The interior went from super advanced, modern, futuristic to 1990s.
yeah, yeah. Well, what they've announced is that it's the first year of production is now sold out. What is likely to be the first year of production. This is what Volkswagen has said. However, it's not going to qualify for the EV tax credit because it is built in Hanover, Germany, at least for the time being. The ID4, on the other hand, production has already started in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So as long as you had a VIN number from a Chattanooga sourced ID4, you would qualify for at least half of the tax credit. Now, something I should share with everyone is that, yeah, we might as well dive into the tax credit stuff, Justice, because let's be honest, that's what a lot of people still want to know about.
Yeah.
The
Well, it's a
federal
complicated issue.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue. So, where should
Yeah.
I start? The federal government did release some guidance. It mostly helped to clarify the situation, but it did confuse Tesla prospective buyers a little bit more by including Tesla on the list. Here's what you should know. The IRS, which has the final say for some of these rules, has said that the transition rule applies if you have a written binding contract, which is what we talked about, signed before the date that the Inflation Reduction Act was signed on August 16th. You either have to have a written binding contract or you could have made a down payment of at least 5%. Now, 5% is a lot if you think about it, because at EV prices, that could be three, four, $5,000. And Justice, I mean, if you wanted a Lucid Air, what's 5% of a Lucid Air's price? It's like
A lot.
probably like $8,000. So let's see. $130,000 times 0.05 be $6,500. That would be your 5% down payment. Now, why didn't we tell you this before the bill was signed? Because this was not in the bill's text. This was a part of how
No.
the bill allowed for the IRS to issue different rulings just to clarify the situation. And the IRS made that announcement after the bill was signed that 5% down payment counts. But I mean, it would have been helpful if they had shared that with us
Yeah,
before
they
the bill was
they
signed.
made the announcement very quickly. I was very surprised. I thought there was going to be more time, and they had to gather all their ducks and put them in a row. But they seem to have been working on this while it was pending this whole time.
True, true. And in the chat, Educational Technology said, any chance of putting down a $1,000 deposit to hold an Ionic 5 counting as a binding contract? It sounds like no. You would have to have signed some papers that say it's a binding contract or have put 5% down. Calculator says that would be $2,500 if the car costed $50,000, for example. So probably not, unfortunately. Now, we're going to get back into that government issued guidance here in a moment, but something else I want to bring up is the fact that we really should start thinking about this incentive as a 3750 incentive,
Yeah,
$3,750, and not really a $7,500 incentive. Why? Because a lot of the automakers are sourcing batteries from places that are going to not qualify for the second half of the new EV tax credit, because this is really a battery tax credit, right? It's not about battery capacity anymore.
yeah. It's about it, it's a North America tax credit.
Yeah. So to get the first half of the tax credit, it needs to have battery pack assembly, at least 50% in North America, starting next year. And to get the latter half of the credit, the other 3750, you have to have battery minerals that are at least 40% sourced from North America or free trade agreement countries. And it's that battery sourcing requirement. We have honestly no idea where they get their minerals from. And I know that even Ford had signed commitments with CATL in China recently, and we just need to start assuming that it's 3750 and being thankful if a model ends up qualifying for the full 7500. Now, if you think about it, let's talk about the Ionic 5 as our example real quick. If it's a $3,750 incentive instead of 7500, if you really, really love the Ionic 5 or the EV6 or the Audi e-tron and Audi e-tron, and you're about to lose that larger tax credit, you might still want to make the purchase if it's a difference of $3,750. If you start saying it's a difference of $7,500, that's a way bigger number. But
Yeah,
I think I'm starting to see a future where a lot of people are still buying the Ionic 5s, the EV6s, the Polestar 2s, the EVs made overseas, because they think about how $3,750, it matters a lot to some, but if it's a car that you want to keep for like 10 years, which is, a rough estimate of what I'm trying to do with my Ioniq 5, it may just be worth it to take that hit in the pocket and just get the car you actually want and not have regrets. But I don't know. That'll be a personal decision, I guess.
I don't see this affecting EV sales as much as our initial reaction. We wanted the 7,500, but lest we forget that Tesla is the number one selling EV on the planet, and they
Yeah,
haven't had tax credits in a long time. It has not
exactly.
stopped people from buying this vehicle.
Yeah, they need a compelling product, reasonable pricing, which is a lot harder to do than
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
and also a reliable charging network, which Tesla has. Great question right here from Don. Will the North America assembly requirement and battery sourcing rules also apply to used EVs? No, but the used EV tax credit is a lot more strict with pricing. It must be $25,000 or less. It must be at least 2 years old, which that won't be a problem, but the $25,000 cap, that's the tough
Yeah.
one. And, it must be the first buyer since the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law. So, like, if you buy a Nissan Leaf in 2023, you'll get the used EV tax credit if it's under $25,000 and you meet the income cap limits. However, if you sell your Nissan Leaf to someone else a few years later, they're not going to be able to claim the used EV tax credit. Very, very interesting. Yeah. And you have to buy from a dealer. That's another rule for the used EV tax credit. That one's a little bit strange in my opinion, but I guess that's how they certify everything.
That's good for dealers. Yes.
Good for dealers. Yes, indeed. Here's a good question right here. Is the Volvo XC60 plug-in hybrid eligible for the tax credit for buyers who have a binding contract eligible or signed before the bill was signed into law? Yes, if you have the binding contract before it was signed into law, you're good to go. So you will claim the original tax credit based on your battery capacity. I don't recall exactly what the XC60 plug-in hybrid's battery capacity is, but remember the original EV tax credit in place since 2008, it's based on battery capacity. So you'd have to look at the resource that we could try to pull up for you to calculate exactly what you'd be eligible for with the XC60. Justice, any guesses as to what the battery pack size is for this model?
For the XC60, I feel like I looked that up recently, but I'm guessing it's around 12 kilowatts. Let's see.
Maybe, possibly. And I'm sorry, we're just getting to your question right here in the chat. Life of Lemus. What if I want to buy a Mustang Mach-E today or between now and January 1st, 2023? Do I get the $7,500 federal credit? Here is the guidance that the federal government has just issued. I'm going to share that with you because it's relevant to answering your question. Pulling it up now. Okay, here we are. The transition rule says that the final assembly requirement is now in effect, starting on August 16th when this was signed. Luckily, the Mustang Mach-E is built in Mexico, and that is considered part of North America, of course. So you're good to go. If you take delivery in 2023 or sign the paperwork in 2023, that's where it gets really, really convoluted for Ford, whether it's the Mustang Mach-E or the F-150 Lightning, because of where Ford sources their batteries from. They have a number of battery suppliers, one of which is CATL, Chinese battery supplier. And that's when Ford may lose eligibility for some models or even some select VIN numbers, maybe even some select trim options, for example, the standard range, but not the extended range. We don't know how it's going to turn out for Ford, but their battery sourcing is going to complicate matters in 2023. However, to answer your question, if you take delivery of a Mustang Mach-E or sign the final written binding contract in 2022, you will qualify for the full 7,500 and the original tax credit. That's what the IRS's guidance has said. But if it's after that, not quite going to be that easy to figure out. Yeah, it's such a mess. They're going to have to be hiring lots of like lawyers and analysts to figure out which models qualify.
Yeah, I know they put out their list the list was confusing on how they came up with those, and then as the rules change, it's going to get even worse.
Yeah, I'm gonna
And
share.
by the
What's
way,
that?
the XC60 was 12 kilowatt hour battery.
Awesome. Oh, good memory. Nice. Another thing I want to share is what the U.S. Department of Energy shared with us all just the other day, which is a list of American-made EVs and plug-in hybrids. Now, here's why it's a bit confusing. This list, which is overall useful, we're glad they shared it with us. It includes several EVs that are not applicable for the current tax credit at all in 2022. Let me tell you why. America's top selling EV, the Tesla Model Y, it is on this list along with the 3S and X. However, right here, the manufacturer sales cap was met years ago at this point. So even though they included the Teslas on this list of North American assembled EVs, they are not eligible for any tax credits at all in 2022 because the 200,000 sale cap from the original tax credit is not removed until January 1st, 2023. So yeah, they're on the list, American made, but you cannot get a Tesla EV incentive, federal incentive until January 1st. But always remember there might be generous state incentives where you live. There sure aren't where I'm at in West Virginia.
There are lots here in California.
Yes,
So
I
if you
believe
live
it.
here, definitely not just the state, but lots of local incentives too.
Yes, yes, lots of local incentives. This also reminds me GM EVs are not qualifying in 2022 because they also met the 200,000 sale cap with the success of the Chevy Bolt. So if you want a Bolt EV or EUV, or maybe you're one of the first Cadillac Lyric buyers, you're not going to get the incentive unless you take delivery in 2023. Okay. Now the GMC Hummer is on this list. It's another like model that should just not be on the list because the sales cap has been met, right? So it wouldn't qualify until January 1st anyways, but also on January 1st, the price caps go into effect. So no matter what, they're going to lose this incentive because the GMC Hummer EV costs over $80,000, and that is the price cap for SUVs and trucks.
And
Interesting.
most of those Teslas too. You're not going to get an S or an X,
Thank you for reminding
um,
us. Yes, exactly.
even
Not
under the new rules.
yeah. So and why not the Model 3? Well, the price cap for sedans is $55,000. Sure, the rear wheel drive Model 3 is under $55,000. However, battery sourcing is going to come into play here because they source lithium iron phosphate LFP batteries from CATL, and then starting in 2024 the foreign entity of concern provision goes into effect, and that means that if you get batteries or battery minerals sourced from China, you would be disqualified overall. So it would be interesting to see, Justice, maybe the Model 3 will indeed qualify for just 2023 before the foreign entity of concern provision goes into effect. But I don't know.
Only on the lowest trim, but yeah,
Yes, yes, only on
yeah,
the
you
lowest
can't
trim
add full self-driving beta or anything else. So,
or anything cool. No, no, like
no.
red paint. Actually, I guess you could, but
But the Model Y, I think, is the winner out of all that.
yeah, yeah. Let's see if we've got any other questions in the chat. This is a good point. They did not include the 2023 Volkswagen ID4, which would qualify if delivered in 2022. It would only qualify if delivered in 2022 if it's a VIN number from production in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Complicated, huh? Because right now, Volkswagen is still shipping German-made ID4s to America, but they've already started producing some in Tennessee. So it literally comes down to the specific VIN number to see if the ID4 would get the credit between now and January 1st of 2023.
Yeah,
Very,
so
very
if you're
interesting.
shopping around, look for to start with a 1, 4, or 5. If it starts with the W, that's Germany, and is not going to qualify.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now, I would like you to help us with this one. A good question from Antoine. So, do EVs retain their value longer than ICE vehicles? What have you seen over the years, Justice?
Well, I mean, yes, but that's because they're only Teslas right now, right? I mean, Teslas are appreciating even more than most vehicles right now. So it's sort of skewed right now. The
It is.
Nissan Leaf, no, the Leaf loses value. But again, that's part of that is the connector and the sort of old batteries and things. But Tesla's increased value. You could buy one now and flip it. We're still seeing that. We're still seeing flipping happening with the Model 3 in particular. Um, so I just don't think there's enough data of enough EVs out there yet to know what the long term is going to be.
Yes, I would refrain from making any long-term predictions for EV value because yeah, 5 years from now, there could be, you know, orders of magnitude more used EVs on the market than there are today, and that's gonna affect overall EV value retention. So, past performance with, like, Tesla and even my Ioniq 5 does not indicate future performance for the value retention of an EV. It's just kind of a guessing game at this point. So, I wouldn't buy an EV planning to make money in the future. Definitely don't do that.
No, and it will depend on how fast battery technology changes. If you have a completely different vehicle or battery in 5 years, and when you're buying it and the new battery's twice as efficient, clearly it's not going to hold the value. So there's a lot of components in there.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now let's talk about plug-in hybrids or EVs. This is something I wanted to touch on because plug-in hybrids do qualify for the federal tax credit as long as they have a minimum 7 kilowatt hour battery pack, and almost all of them do at this point. So that's not an issue at all. They still have to be made in America. They have to follow the same battery sourcing requirements that go into effect in 2023 and 2024, but plug-in hybrids qualify. I wanted to talk with our viewers and with our community real quick about when it might make sense to go for a PHEV plug-in hybrid instead of a full EV, because I don't know if everyone would agree with me, but it's definitely my opinion that not everyone should go fully electric. I mean, where I live in West Virginia, it was kind of silly for me to buy a fully electric Ioniq 5 that relies on Electrify America's network for the time being because there's not a single Electrify America charger in my state. Why did I do it anyways? Because I love the car and I see how quickly the game is changing with respects to EV charging infrastructure. I think if I can be patient and wait it out for like 1 at most 2 years, charging infrastructure will be a lot easier to come by. But for many drivers out there, they can't wait around a year or two for chargers to be built. So one thing I want everyone to think about is how often do you travel? Because 90% of my charging is done at home, except when I go on road trips, right? So if you don't travel often, a fully electric vehicle could be right for you right now if it fits within your budget. That's the challenge, right? So, Justice, how do you see plug-in hybrid adoption being different in like California, New York versus middle America? Do you see it as kind of unnecessary now in California because you've got charging infrastructure everywhere? Or do you think plug-in hybrids are remaining a viable option in populated areas with charging infrastructure?
Yeah, I think even in California, which has more chargers than the rest of the nation combined, the plug-in hybrid is still going to continue to be very popular. We're a big state, and it takes a long time to drive from here to there. The thing about living in California is the geography and going from the mountains to the desert to the ocean. And, uh, you know, while we do have a great infrastructure, you're not going to go up to the Sierra Nevada mountains and find a lot of even Tesla charging stations up there. Right. So it depends on your lifestyle. California is definitely an outdoor lifestyle and an active lifestyle. So I think plug-in hybrids are still going to remain very popular here. So people can go out camping, they can go out to the ocean for a couple days and not have to worry about that. There's only one charger in the middle of Death Valley. Takes a long time to get across that.
Wow.
Uh, and it's Tesla, of course. So if you're not driving a Tesla, you're not getting across Death Valley. We also travel a lot to Arizona and Nevada. So I think plug-in hybrid is going to remain active, but we also do have obviously the number one EV adoption rate in the
Yeah.
nation by quite a bit
Yes.
because of our infrastructure. So I don't think the plug-in hybrid is going anywhere. I think maybe the non-plug-in hybrid is going to drop off in California a little bit, uh, but I don't think the plug-in's going anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. And I know Zach and we've talked about this. Zach really thinks that plug-in hybrids and even just traditional hybrids are going to remain a big part of the marketplace and a growing part of the marketplace offerings for the next decade because not only what we've just talked about with the lack of charging infrastructure in much of middle America being so much different from what you see on the coasts, but also RJ Scaringe, CEO of Rivian, he recently said that automakers are going to have to start rationing battery supplies in the rest of this decade unless we can hurry up and catch up our battery supply chains to where they need to be in just a few years' time. So, is that going to be the next shortage? Battery supplies? Possibly. If it does end up being the case, that's going to be another reason for keeping plug in hybrids as a part of the vehicle lineup for sure. I love this question right here from Don. Do we have any data on plug-in hybrid battery degradation? No, I do not, but I'm writing down your question because I want to find out the answer. Don says he would imagine that plug-in hybrids would have faster capacity loss because most people would be charging to 100% on a daily basis. That makes sense because if you only have 30 to 40 miles of fully electric range and you like driving on those electrons and not spending money on fuel, you would be wanting to charge to like 100% every day. I get what you're saying. I don't know how that
Yeah.
impacts battery degradation. Excellent question. Do you happen to know, Justice?
Oh, I've absolutely no idea.
Me
I have
either.
no idea, but that is a fascinating question, and I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yes, and Igor, this is a big point that I always forget to make, but this is excellent to think about. If you live in multifamily housing, an apartment complex, anything where you might not have access to a charger, then you would definitely want to go the plug-in hybrid route so that you're not stranded with an EV. But Justice, you've had workarounds with this in the past, right?
Yeah. So I tell people all the time first, ask your landlord and have them check with the local incentives. My landlord installed, actually, he just installed six more here um, because the power company pays for the installation. So he can charge more in rent, attract more people uh, with having the chargers in there, and he doesn't pay for them. So, you know, definitely research your local rules because that's why my landlord did. He didn't know about it. I told him about it, and I asked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important thing to remember is landlords think this is going to be, $20,000 to install, have to rip up the parking lot and do all this stuff, and they are not going to see a return on it. And that's not necessarily true. So the more people that ask and get it out there, the more that problem can get solved.
Yeah, and it depends where you live because I
Yeah.
know in my neck of the woods, I don't think any apartment complex managers would be willing to do that. So where I live, living in an apartment would be a reason to go for a PHEV instead of a full EV. But where you're at in California or in many parts of the country, maybe apartment managers would be willing to do that. I mean, yeah,
I think it depends on the apartments too. You're not going to get a high rise in New York City. They're not going to jump on that. I don't think.
yeah. Now here's something that I personally thought about. You have more complexity with plug-in hybrids because you have not only the electric components, you also have the combustion components. And that means that maintenance needs are not going to go away like they do with with an EV, maintenance needs don't go away, but you've got a significantly less maintenance requirements with a fully electric vehicle than you do with a traditional combustion vehicle. Now the question could be had like What about when I need to replace my battery in 10 or 20 years? Well, yeah, okay. I'm aware of that. But still, this is a good point to be made. You're still going to need a lot of regularly scheduled maintenance if you have a PHEV because it's got both powertrains. A good point. All right, let's see. Well, the Ray and Zach show is just 20 minutes away, Justice.
Cool, cool. I'm looking forward to today. I think we got a special guest on, so it's
Oh,
gonna be fun
nice.
over there. I'll
Nice.
jump into my Hellcat and we'll go over there.
Yes, yes, indeed. Well, please like this video so we can help grow the channel. We're trying to make EV lifestyle accessible for more people. And if an EV is not right for you, we're also here to help you figure out what's next on your driving path forward. So thank you so much for being here today. And we're going to be back Monday. Not sure what we'll talk about, but there's always plenty to learn about in the EV world. Thank you, and everyone have a beautiful weekend. Yeah, we'll talk soon. Thanks,
Bye,
Justice.
guys. Thank you.